With his win at Shine, Zain joined the intensely exclusive ranks of players like Ken, Isaiah, and Armada, who've taken home first place at a major Melee event. And like always, when a player picks up a win as big as this, people have begun to talk about how this affects where he should be currently ranked. Most would generally agree that he has jumped at least one spot to 8th past Amsa, but some have said that he's also leaped past Wizzrobe and maybe even Mango with Shine. So with this video, I'm going to give you all the information you should need to make an informed decision about where you think Zain should be ranked as of right now. To get a feel for how each of the three have performed throughout the year, let's take a look at their placings at the events at least 2 of them attended. The consistency it takes to be considered a top 10 player really shows through here, with 9th being the lowest placing for these players, barring Zain's Genesis 5 and Mango's SmashCon. Also collectively, only 10 of these 45 losses come from players currently considered outside the top 10. And although this list does not include every event these players attended this year, with Wizzrobe's first place at Optic Arena being the most notable absence, we can still get an idea of each player's biggest demons so far this year. Mango's is the hardest to pin down of the 3, but his 0-3 record against Zain is probably the biggest thorn in his side. The level of skill that Zain has jumped over the last 9 months is honestly incredible, causing him to consistently get deep enough in the bracket to have Hungrybox as his demon that he may be starting to flip the script on. And lastly, we have Wizzrobe, who could have both Mutaking or Mango considered as his biggest roadblock into making a deep run. While on the subject of these head-to-head records, now that we have a very brief overview of their years, let's look at each of these players' records against the top 6. Here we can see one of Mango's biggest strengths over the other 2. He has proven that he can beat just about everyone in the top 6 this year. In my opinion, this is so important for ranking players as it lowers the amount of players that can be considered an almost guaranteed loss set if they were to meet in bracket. To compare the 3 on a bit of a broader scale, Mango has beaten 5 of these players over the last 2 years, whereas Zain has only beaten 4 and Wizzrobe 3. It's a lot harder to gauge Wizzrobe's current chances against the Swedes, because he's leveled up significantly since he last got to play either of them, so hopefully we'll get to see him faced off against at least one of them before the year ends. And finally, let's take a look at each player's report card of wins and losses for the year so far. As always, there's a whole lot of data here to parse, but let's highlight some important bits. Here I think we see the best example of Mango's consistency, with only minimal bad losses, but some would argue that his relative inactivity plays a significant part in that. This chart also shows off the interesting rock, paper, scissors dynamic these 3 have, with Zain beating Mango, Mango beating Wizzy, and Wizzrobe beating Zain. Wizzrobe and Zain's win columns look relatively similar except for the 7 to 10 area, where Zain really hasn't gotten a chance to prove himself against anyone besides Wizzrobe. Lastly, Zain very clearly has the largest depth of losses of any of these 3 players. This makes a whole lot of sense, as many would agree that Zain has made huge leaps and bounds skill-wise since January, so we're basically looking at the losses of 2 different players combined. There's so many little things that we could talk about on this chart, so if you haven't made up your mind quite yet, I'd advise you to pause the video here and think for a bit before I give my opinion. So with all that being said, where do I think these 3 should be ranked? I think Mango is the clear 6th, but the gap between him and 7th and 8th is smaller than it has ever been before. Mango's relative consistency, paired with his invaluable demonstration that he has the talent to beat every other top 5 member, makes this choice clear for me. But if either of these 2 pick up 2 or 3 more sets off a top 6 player, or Mango has a relatively underwhelming performance at the Big House 8, I could see the top 6 finally being broken into by one of these young stars. And as for the Wizzrobe versus Zain debate, it's honestly so close to call. If we were just grading these 2 players by how far I think they would go in a tournament held tomorrow, Zain would be the easy winner for me. But I grade my ranking as how would this report card of wins and losses perform at 100 events. So because Zain has garnered many more losses than Wizzrobe during his rise to his current status, and because he still hasn't had the opportunity to prove himself in the 7 to 10 range and in some matchups, I currently give the 7th place nod to Wizzrobe, with Zain being not too far behind. And that about does it for this video. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of debating going on in the comments down below, so remember, be civil and make sure to explain your reasoning behind your logic. No one on either side of the debate learns anything if you just say Zain should be 6th best in the world because he won Shine, without you explaining that by saying something like, taking first place at an event is really important to you in your rankings. And before we end this off, I want to give a shout out to my lovely Patreon supporters, Bootstrings, Nick Fade, Sam Wright, Edwin Budding, JD, Daniel Gilbert, Blair Alexander, 2 Saint, Grant Mercer, Caleb Schumacher, James, Wife, Eric Lee, and Mark Rivera. If you want to join this amazing group of people and get access to videos early and more, consider supporting me over on Patreon. And that's about it for this video. I've been SaveAsUntitled, and I will see you guys next time.